AITAH for sending the kids to their dad after my partner had yet another fit of rage? I need help. Throwaway account for obv reasons. Sorry this is long, but I'm trying to explain everything so you have the complete picture. And sorry for the English, it's my third language. So I, 27F, have been together with X, 38M, for a little over 2.5 years. I'm divorced with 2 kids, Matt, 8M, and Lucy, 6F. The relationship with their dad has always been rocky, especially during the divorce. He even tried to take the kids from me for no real reason, apart from knowing it would be the only thing that could really hurt me. But we have come to the point where we talk about kid stuff in a mature way, and we agree on putting their well-being first. Kids have a really strong bond with X. He's been great to them, especially since Matt has had behavioral issues in the past and X has helped me with discipline, etc. The issue is that in more occasions X comes across as aggressive for the way he talks. He tends to yell and speaks as someone who is constantly annoyed even by silly things. I know it's not easy living with 2 kids who aren't yours, and I've often talked about it with him. In several occasions we've had very heated arguments in front of the kids, which is totally wrong. He doesn't know when to stop, and yells at a point where I can't even hear what I'm saying. I also tend to react in a strong way, or sometimes tears just come out of my eyes and I can't make anything about it. Yesterday he came back after 5 days of vacation with his buddy, where he stayed at a casino and slept very little, so of course his fuse was already short. He wanted attention all for himself, while I was in a hurry to pick the kids up from school and drive them to their activities. This seemed to really hurt him. He felt like I didn't love him. But as I explained, I had mom duties and I would come back later. I even asked him what he wanted for dinner and tried to make things nice. But I also told him I felt a bit annoyed too. He knew I was in a hurry, and instead of coming directly home to spend more time together before I had to pick the kids up, he went to a betting place to collect some money he won. This angered him even more, as he said I was just being petty and polemic when my intention was just to express my feelings. In the meantime, he sent me more messages saying that the whole house was a mess. Only we had a wall repainted, and the next morning the workers had to come again and I left a bit of dust they made. Mind you, I was alone with the kids and a very needy dog, and on Friday, Saturday, and Tuesday morning I had to work. I cleaned the whole house except from that single spot. When I came home, I helped my kids shower while cooking dinner, the one he chose, and he was trying to touch me all the time. I said, "Let me finish with the kids so that when they're in their bed we can snuggle a bit." His response, "The kids always come first, even when I just came home." Okay, understandable maybe, but I'm trying to cook while getting them ready for bed. The sooner they're in bed, the sooner we have alone time. At dinner, my kids were visibly tired, Lucy especially, and Matt was a bit upset BCX was taking to him in his annoyed voice in a rude way. I told him 3 times calmly to talk in a nicer way. Then he made a joke to Lucy, who is very sensitive, and he knows she doesn't like jokes. As it's not the first time this happened, he pretended to pick his nose and put whatever was inside on Lucy's cheek. She started crying hysterically, and as I picked her up I said to X, "What kind of stupid jokes are you doing? You know she hates this kind of things." He slammed his fist on the table and yelled, his eyes out on stalks, "I'm fucking fed up with you." Matt was as shocked as I was and started to say repeatedly, "You're an ass." Before I could even scold him for this, X started to yell again, his face close to Matt's. I can't even remember the exact words, but it was a really unnecessary and horrible scene. At that point, knowing that X in precedent occasions hadn't been able to calm down and that I was about to react yelling or crying, I know I'm in the wrong too. I said calmly to the kids to call their dad and have him pick them up. They were gone in 20 minutes. I told my ex that the kids were just being kids. They had a fid of a stupid joke they didn't understand. So I didn't humiliate X or told my ex I was mad at him. X has broken up with me of this. He says I was disrespectful in his regards and that I shouldn't have called my ex. I was just trying to protect the kids from an evening of yelling and screaming. I don't have any family here, otherwise I would have brought them to them obviously. He insulted me saying I should go back with my ex, that I'm a stupid bitch, that I don't know his rage, and now he will make everything in his capabilities to ruin my life. I know I can be heavy and take things too seriously sometimes, but am I the a-hole? How should I proceed?
My boyfriend and his mom are enmeshed. I need advice. I, 29F, have been with my boyfriend, 33N, for 15 years. We own a house together and have 3 kids. Since day one, I knew him and his mom were close. He was around 18 when we started dating. They hung out every day. He even ran every errand she had with her. She got jealous when we started dating. If we went to get food together, she'd made comments like, "You didn't get anything for me." She also said weird stuff like, not his real name, "Steve's my little boyfriend," which always creeped me out. I remember her even calling him her Valentine on Valentine's days. And when he got lawsuit money from a childhood accident, he bought her $2,000 ring. It was so weird to me that she would let him do something like that. When I got pregnant and we moved out, she went crazy, saying good luck in the real world and stomping around the house yelling. She'd never had a real husband or partner, so I really think that's the reason she has placed Steve into that role instead of treating him like a son. She also expected to take part in raising my children and became angry when I didn't let that happen. Over the years since we moved out, bought our own house, and had 3 kids, in some ways he has come along and started setting some boundaries, but he still needs to talk to her daily, calls and texts, and hangs out her basically anytime he isn't with me, or the kids. And days I work, and he has the kids, he has her over immediately, and even the kids are getting sick of it. He also still buys her expensive gifts like an iPad, Apple Watch, etc. for holidays or her B-days, which still is odd to me. She also knows everything about our relationship. There aren't any secrets. If we have an argument, he tells her, even times I've asked him not to. She comes up to me and talks about details of stuff that happened between me and him, and it makes me uncomfortable. Steve sees no issue and told me he doesn't care how I feel and there's nothing wrong with their relationship. They have had this odd bond over substances. She shares her prescription pills with him and they use marijuana together. It always reminded me of how friends bonded over drinking or using substances. When I was younger, it didn't bother me until we had our own kids, and I realized how weird it is that his mom and him act like buddies who use together. When I asked him why he thinks it's normal, he gets defensive and says it's not a big deal and he has back problems, and marijuana is legal. Basically, I just need advice. I don't feel that I've ever been happy in this relationship, and I don't see him ever changing and realizing how odd his relationship with her is. I feel like I'd ache what a normal mother-son relationship is, so I'd okay if I should just be okay with him having to call, text, and see her basically every day, and him sharing all details of our life with her. But I feel like I'm going crazy. Edit. He recently has been laid off for a year, so I didn't realize how bad it was until now that they both have an open schedule. She doesn't work. When he was working, they would just see each other weekends. Now that it's daily, it honestly just shocking to me. Another edit. He is laid off for workman's comp for a herniated disc. So he still is financially supportive, not that it make the mommy boy situation better lol, and we're not married.
AITAH for not defending my son when a random man beat up him and his friends. My 16-year-old son has always been a decent kid, honor roll student, volunteered at school events, close with his grandparents, and never gave us real trouble. My wife and I, and his grandparents, have definitely spoiled him over the years, but he was always respectful and kind until this school year. This year, everything changed. He fell in with a group of kids from the football and wrestling teams who have a reputation for being loud, disrespectful, and just generally bad news. Since then, his grades have dropped, his attitude has gone downhill, and he stopped spending time with family. A few months ago, he and those same friends trashed a movie theater just for laughs. I grounded him hard. No phone, no games, no extracurriculars. I also told him he wasn't allowed to hang out with those boys anymore. I even spoke with a few of their parents, and we all agreed to keep the boys apart. It was handled calmly, with mutual understanding. Today took things to a whole new level. He had a doctor's appointment in the middle of the school day, so I let him stay home. Afterward, I dropped him off and went to work. At some point in the afternoon, he snuck out and met up with those same friends. They ended up loitering in front of a TJ Maxx, bothering customers going in and out. An elderly employee, Miss Purley, who's in her 70s and has worked there forever, came outside holding some hangers and politely asked the boys to leave if they weren't shopping. One of the kids already filming started mocking her on camera. My son joined in, booing and saying, "Relax, nobody's getting hurt, and you're ruining the fun." When she pulled out her walkie-talkie to call security, one of the boys slapped it from her hand. Then my son tried to yank the clothes from her grip. She didn't let go, and in the struggle, she lost her balance and fell backward to the ground. They all laughed. One of them said, "You faking now, huh? Trying to play victim." A bystander came up and asked, "Did you just push that old lady?" The boys immediately denied it, claiming she was acting. Without another word, the man punched my son and two of his friends. The others ran off. The phone filming hit the ground, but you can still hear the fight sounds like the man landed a few more hits before backing off. My son called me, and I rushed to the scene. The man was still there, calm, arms crossed. I asked if he'd hit my son, and he said, "I sure as hell did." "Are you the father of the boy who thinks bullying an old woman is funny? What kind of man are you raising?" I was furious, but not at him. After speaking with witnesses and watching the video, I was disgusted by what I saw. And then the police arrived. Since I was the only parent who showed up, my son was arrested on the spot. The other boys were picked up from their homes later that day. They're all currently in jail. When I got home, my wife lost it. She accused me of letting our son get beat and arrested like he was some criminal. Her sister called me a pathetic excuse for a father, and even my own mother told me I should have defended him, no matter what. But after what I saw in that video, I couldn't bring myself to shield him from the consequences. He knew better. He's had warning after warning. It's like they care more about my son getting his karma for a bad thing he did rather than him taunting and bruising an elderly woman. I sat there with them yelling at me, but their voices felt like static. It was like I wasn't even in the room anymore, just stuck in my own head, trying to make sense of everything. I got up without saying a word and walked out the back door, locked myself in the shed, and just sat there. I needed a moment alone to breathe, to process, to try and register what the hell just happened and what it all means. Because right now, I don't know how to feel as a father. A big part of me feels like I've failed, not just in the my kid messed up way, but in a deep gut level way that makes me question whether I've completely lost my son. Like there's no coming back from this. Aita read it? For not defending him? For being a bad father? I just don't know where I went wrong as a man and father.
AITA for doing nothing for the child my ex-wife had from her affair even now that I have primary custody of our kids. 6 years ago I, 36M, learned that my ex-wife, 37F, was cheating on me. I ended our marriage and filed for divorce, but everything was delayed because she was pregnant. Once her child was born and it was established that I was not the biological father, my name was removed from the birth certificate and the bio father's name was added. They were a couple at this point. Throughout we shared 50-50 custody of our 3 children together. My kids were old enough to figure out what happened. I got them therapy eventually after my ex resisted putting them in therapy and we had talks about everything. I did my best to reassure them that they didn't need to hate anyone for me or reject anyone on my behalf. But their relationship with their mom never recovered and the relationship with her youngest never existed from what I know. The affair partner took off 3 years ago and since then my ex-wife has requested that I take an active part in her child's life because I'm so involved in our kids' lives. Each and every time she has made this request via parenting app, I have firmly said no. She tried to take full custody of our kids because I refused to include her youngest and a judge told her it didn't work like that and I did not have a legal responsibility to her youngest child. I ended up with primary custody of my children a year ago because my ex-wife made some very bad decisions and not only lost the house she was staying in but lost her job, had no savings and overall was left with next to nothing. After this happened, her requests for me to do something for her child increased. I ignored them for the most part and did as I was instructed to do by my lawyer and replied to the ones that indicated I was responsible for ensuring the child was adequately cared for. Those I did say no to and reminded her there were places she could go if she needed help feeding her youngest. Our kids still must go to her house for her every other weekend visitation and they hate it. Which angers my ex because they have zero relationship with her youngest, and it angers her that I won't ensure that all of the kids have a good relationship and that her youngest knows what it's like to have a fatherly figure. She said she would allow me to adopt her child if I was willing. Then she said she would at least like me to do something. To express some care for her child. Send birthday and Christmas gifts, send food occasionally, offer to let her child join in for some activities. I do none of this. I have asked my kids if they would like to spend more time with their half-sibling or give gifts, but they have always said no, and they told me when they can make the decision not to go to their mom's house they won't have anything to do with her child either. My ex has become more angry because there are things her child has missed out on, and apparently they ask more questions now. Some of her messages on the app are now extremely hostile. There's nothing I can do about this for the moment, but they're saved so if we end up back in court they can be shown. She told me I act like I'm such a good person, but I treat a child like shit. I don't feel bad exactly. I know I would have a very hard time being around this child and their innocence, so I prefer to stay away and not let them feel the weight of my issues with their mother and how they were conceived. But maybe that makes me an awful person. I know at the end of all this is a child who has only got my ex and nobody else, and the child is innocent like I stated. Which brought me here to ask. Aita?
My fiancé made a split-second decision that has cost me a year of my life, and I'm furious. I, 26F, my fiancé 30M, and his son, 5Y, were out getting Chipotle on March 14th. On the way home, we reached a busy intersection with a blinking yellow light. My fiancé was driving, and I could tell he was about to go. I saw a car coming fast, and I very clearly told him to wait until the light was green. I don't know if he didn't hear me, didn't take me seriously, or just ignored me, but he kept driving forward anyway, and we got T-boned by a car going 50 miles per hour. Everyone else walked away fine, including his son, thank God, but I was crushed. I ended up with 2 full breaks in my pelvis, 2 fractures in my tailbone, fractures in my L4 and L5 vertebrae, and a fractured sternum. I was, and still am, in so much pain I can't even explain it. I wouldn't wish this kind of pain on anyone. I was rushed to the ER, where everything was a complete blur, except the trauma. I started having intense flashbacks, panic attacks, and nightmares about the crash and the pain. I had to undergo surgery where 2 7-inch steel screws were inserted into my pelvis. At the hospital, they gave me a back brace that was way too big for me. The nurses and PTs even admitted they didn't measure and just guessed my size. Even when we told them it was too big, they didn't do anything about it. And despite this, they expected me to stand up and move around wearing it. That brace did nothing for support. Moving in it felt like my spine and pelvis were being ripped apart. The pain I was in trying to follow their orders to stand and walk was inhumane. All I remember from those days is pain, frustration, fear, and this overwhelming sense of helplessness. After about a week, I was transferred to a physical rehabilitation center. I didn't want to eat. I didn't want to bathe. I didn't want to move. I was so depressed and in so much pain that even thinking about shifting in bed made me cry. I had to depend on strangers for the most basic things, going to the bathroom, bathing, even feeding myself. As someone who's always been independent, it was utterly humiliating and devastating. I'm home now, but my recovery is far from over. Doctors and physical therapists all told me the same thing. You have the second worst kind of break anyone can experience. You'll need at least a year to recover, if not longer. You can't put weight on your right leg for 3 months. No bending, no twisting. And even after the 3 months, it'll be a very slow process. And that's the part that's eating me alive. Because before this, I was finally getting my life together. I was working on my health. I was eating right, doing CrossFit regularly, getting stronger, and finally meeting people and socializing. I had just gone back to college. I was finally building structure into my life after being recently diagnosed with ADHD. And now, it's all on hold. I can't work out. I can't leave the house unless it's for a doctor's appointment. I can't do anything by myself. And it feels like I lost everything I was working so hard to build. And even though my fiancé has been supportive through all of this and is helping take care of me, I'm so angry at him. I told him. I warned him. I said, don't go. Wait. And when I asked him why he kept going, he just said, I don't know. And that I don't know is now costing me an entire year of my life, maybe more. And I'm the one who's paying for it every single day. So yeah, I just needed to get this off my chest. I feel trapped in my own body. I feel like I'm grieving the life I could have had this year. I feel angry, sad, helpless, and I'm just trying to make sense of it all. But mostly, I just want my life back. I know this is temporary. I know I'll eventually recover. But losing a year of my life, my sense of normalcy, and my peace of mind is really, really rough. If anyone has any advice on how I can work on this, or maybe even share their own experiences similar to this one, I'd greatly appreciate it. TLDR, my fiancé ran a blinking yellow light after I told him to wait, and we got T-boned. Everyone else walked away fine, but I ended up with multiple fractures in my spine, tailbone, and sternum, as well as 2 full breaks in my pelvis. I had to undergo surgery, wear a brace that didn't even fit, and was forced to move through unbearable pain. I've lost my independence, my ability to walk, and a year or more of progress I had worked so hard for. I'm angry, grieving the life I was building, and just trying to get through it day by day. Update. I honestly didn't expect my post to receive this much attention. I was just venting my thoughts and emotions in the moment as I'm still going through the stages of grief. Thank you to everyone who took the time to share their thoughts, advice, and support regarding my situation. I want to clear up a few things and provide some additional context, including my fiancé's perspective on why he didn't stop. To start, for those wondering about where the accident happened, since the rules around blinking yellow lights vary, it took place in Texas, within the Dallas-Fort Worth area. That's all I'll share location-wise for privacy reasons. Next, a lot of people have asked whether my fiancé has shown remorse and how he's been supporting me since the accident. The answer is yes, he's been devastated. He has apologized to me multiple times, at the crash site, in the hospital, during rehab, and at home. He's also been having panic attacks himself as of lately, something that he's never experienced prior to the accident. There was one moment where he called me panicking because he couldn't find his truck keys and desperately wanted to come see me to make sure I'm doing okay. My mom had to drive over to calm him down and help. He also continued to visit me frequently in the hospital and at the rehab center, and he's been advocating for me when I had issues, such as the back brace I was given, which was clearly too large. Side note, despite multiple people from my family, fiancé, and even the PTs mentioning it, the hospital staff didn't replace it. It wasn't until I called the hospital a week later, frustrated, that they finally took action. I had to put on my Karen voice and explain that their failure to properly size the brace was actively hindering my recovery. Eventually, I got a new one in a smaller size. Fun fact, the brace only comes in 2 sizes, S/M and L/XL. I'll let you guess which one they gave me. My fiancé has also been helping me understand the insurance claim process. From what we know, I may be looking at around $100,000. Additionally, at home, he's made sure I have what I need to recover. He just bought me a $300 plus bed frame that moves up and down similarly to the hospital beds I was used to because I can't move up and down as normally without feeling pain or being at risk of re-breaking something. He's also been cooking for me and for my visiting family, helping me clean up, assisting with daily tasks, and has made it clear he doesn't expect me to lift a finger and only wants me to focus on healing. He's even told me how he's going to halt his plans on expanding his side business so that he can spend more time tending to me during my recovery. With this said, I've seen a lot of comments saying I should leave him or even sue him, calling him arrogant or careless. I understand those reactions, but looking back, I would have to admit that this was an honest mistake that anyone could make at any time of the day at any point of time. A bad mistake? Yes, but nonetheless simple human error at the end of the day. I'm just angry that it's happened to me, but that is something I will have to work through on my own. With the I don't know reply that he had given me a week earlier, I will admit that he may have been still experiencing shock or trauma, and his mind seemed to have been drawing a blank when I had asked him, because I asked him the same question again today. Why didn't you stop when I told you to? He told me he thought the gap between us and the oncoming car was big enough to make it. He didn't realize how close it actually was. He also said he didn't hear me say stop until it was too late, at which point we were already hit. I told him I said it much earlier, and he admitted he just didn't hear me. He feels horrible. He's told me that every time he approaches a yellow light while driving now, he reminds himself of what happened and how stupid he feels for not being more careful that night. I'm not excusing what happened, it was traumatic, but I do believe he's learning from it and taking accountability for everything as best as he can. I'm just the angry, bitter one that is needing to work through my emotions and grief that I'm experiencing because of the accident. That said, I've resumed individual therapy weekly now instead of monthly. And I had my first session since the accident as of yesterday, and my fiancé and I will be attending couples counseling together. Yes, I plan on staying with him. I know a lot of you are coming from a place of concern and care, and I truly appreciate that. At the same time, I want to gently remind everyone that I'm a real person going through a very real and painful experience. What I shared was raw and vulnerable, not a call to be judged or attacked. It's okay to disagree with how I'm choosing to move forward, but please remember I'm the one living this day by day. Healing, both physical and emotional, isn't linear, and I'm doing the best I can. Thank you again for the overwhelming response. I'm reading as many comments as I can, even if I can't reply to everyone. Please continue to take care of yourselves and those you love. Hold anyone you care about closely to you because when you least expect it, life can change in an instant.
My 22 younger brother, 19, has been acting strangely possessive of me and is accusing me of being jealous of his girlfriend when I confront him about it. My brother and I have always been very close. Growing up, we were each other's best friends. We've been through a lot of stuff: our parents' divorce, death of a few family members, even a devastating house fire when we were little. Even though we're both adults now, we still really rely on and trust each other. After graduating high school, I went to college in a different state. I felt really bad for leaving my brother behind, but other than our parents being divorced, our home life had always been great. He was still rather upset with the fact that I was leaving and didn't want to stay home to be with him. I felt, and still feel, like it was a little unreasonable for him to react that way. I promised that I would call and visit as frequently as possible. When my brother graduated from high school, he asked if he could come live with me. It wasn't too strange for him to ask. We lived in a small town, and the place I moved was a bigger and more interesting city. Since he had decided not to go straight to college, it seemed like moving to the city with me was his only chance to get out of our hometown. I told him that we could look for a new place for when my lease was up. I lived in a studio apartment and wasn't about to share that tiny space with an 18-year-old boy. Ultimately, we found a reasonable 2-bedroom and moved into it right before my classes started. Things were a little weird right off the bat. He got very upset when he found out that I had been casually dating. It seemed like he was upset that I hadn't told him. He was mad that we were drifting apart so far that I wouldn't tell him that I was dating, even if I wasn't in a committed relationship or anything. Then he asked me if I could refrain from bringing guys over to our home. When I asked him why, he said it made him uncomfortable. I told him I could respect that while I was just casually dating guys, but if I got into a relationship, I would certainly be bringing my boyfriend over. "We'll cross that bridge when we come to it," he told me. Well, we got to that bridge. I had a new boyfriend and decided to confront my brother about having him over. I hadn't told my boyfriend why I insisted that we always hang out at his apartment, and he didn't ask. We got into a huge screaming fight where my brother basically told me that college guys only want sex and that I should be focusing on school. I couldn't believe this was happening. When I told him that I was an adult and would do what I wanted, he reminded me that he paid rent and had input into what went on in his home. We compromised that my boyfriend could come over but wouldn't stay overnight. I told him that solution would work for the time being, but we would need to reassess. Again, he told me we would cross that bridge when we came to it. After having this same argument 2 or 3 times, I told my brother that if he wasn't willing to stop being weird about this, I wasn't going to be living with him once the lease was up. He apologized profusely but continued to insist that he was right in this situation. Finally, he told me that he would let me make my own mistakes. Unfortunately, things didn't go well with that boyfriend. We broke up for reasons unrelated to my brother. Of course, my brother took advantage of this to tell me that he was right and that I should have listened to him. Around that time, I called my mom and told her about how weird he was being. She insisted that he was trying to take the place of our father, since he hadn't really been involved in our lives since they were divorced. Even if that's true, I still didn't feel like it justified his behavior. Over the summer, a friend of mine was getting married, so I was out of town for the wedding. When I came home, a bunch of my stuff was missing. Stuff like my perfume, some clothes, and lotion. I asked my brother about it, but he denied taking any of it. He told me that he'd had some friends over, so they must have taken my stuff. He told me that he would deal with it and get my stuff back. He did eventually bring my stuff to me, but I'm not totally convinced that his friends took it. After all, he didn't seem at all upset about them having stolen things from me. About a month ago, he told me that he had a girlfriend and that he wanted to bring her over to meet me. I briefly considered making a big stink about it like he had with my ex, but I decided to be an adult and told him that would be great. He scheduled a big dinner and cooked and asked me to dress up and everything. I was kind of relieved that he had someone he was so interested in because maybe he would be less weird than he had been. When this girl showed up, though, he was in the kitchen when she arrived, so I answered the door. And it was like looking in a mirror. I could tell that she was just as alarmed as I was at how much we looked alike. We both have platinum blonde hair, fair skin, green eyes, and similarly shaped bodies. We're also approximately the same height. During dinner, we discovered that we also have lots of other things in common. She goes to a different college nearby but has the same major that I do. We also like a lot of the same music and share a lot of mannerisms. After she left, I asked my brother if he had noticed how much she and I look alike. He rolled his eyes and told me that I was just being weird. I don't know if I am. He brings her over all the time and they make out in the living room on the couch. When I asked him if they could take it into his room, he accused me of being jealous that he wasn't making out with me, which was confusing to both his girlfriend and myself. That moment, it kind of started to seem like he was trying to make me jealous with her. I wouldn't think too much of it if he hadn't been acting so strange since we moved in together. I can't tell if I'm just imagining things or not. I don't want to feel like my little brother has a crush on me, especially since we live together. I also don't know how to talk about it with him without him just saying that I'm being crazy or jealous or whatever. Please help me. TLDR, my baby brother has been weirdly possessive since moving in with me and now has a girlfriend who looks just like me. Date 1. Thank you all for your comments and messages. I appreciate all your concerns and the confirmation that I am not crazy. So I met up with my future roommate to tell her that I had officially decided not to live with my brother anymore. I gave her a full rundown of everything that had happened between the two of us. We've made appointments to tour some houses and apartments this week. She also said that I'm welcome to move into her place if I don't feel like I can ride out the lease. On Friday night, my brother had his girlfriend over and they were watching movies in the living room. It had been recommended to me that I approach him about it while she was around because he would be less likely to fly off the handle. Just in case, I packed a bag full of valuable things and stuff I would need if I had to book it immediately. They finished one of the movies they had been watching. He went into the kitchen to get them some more snacks and his girlfriend was still in the living room, so I figured that this would be a good time. This way we weren't airing all of our dirty laundry in front of her, but she would be there if he started yelling or anything. I asked him if he could talk for a second. He seemed a little irritated, probably because I was interrupting his date, but said it was fine. I told him that I felt like we didn't make very compatible roommates and that I wouldn't be renewing the lease with him for next month. When he asked why, I told him that I felt like he didn't respect me as a roommate. I wanted to live somewhere with a person who would let me make the calls on who was or wasn't allowed to be in my house. I wanted to live with someone who gave a shit if their friends were stealing from me. He told me that he respected me more than anyone else I could live with. He said that it's because he respects me so much that he gave me a hard time about the boyfriend thing. I said that if he really respected me, he would give me the room to decide if a boyfriend was good for me or not. Around that time, he started getting louder and angrier, so his girlfriend came in to check and see if things were cool. He told her that things were fine and that she should probably go. I panicked and tried to play it off a little. I said stuff like, "Oh no, don't let me ruin your evening. Please stay. I'm about to leave." He kept telling her to go before finally I was begging her to please stay. He could tell that I was kind of scared and started laughing at me. He asked if I was afraid of him and told me that I was being ridiculous. He asked his girlfriend if she thought there was any good reason for me to be afraid of him. She seemed really worried or confused and told him he was being weird. He explained that I had just told him that I was bailing on him as a roommate and that I was being a horrible cunt about things that weren't a big deal. He asked his girlfriend to leave again and she did. Once she was gone, he told me that I was just pissed that he wasn't going to let me be a huge slut like I wanted to be. He told me that someday I would meet the perfect guy for me, but he wouldn't want to date me because I would have had sex with so many guys and nobody worthwhile wants to marry a skank. He said that he was trying to help me so that I wouldn't wind up in that situation. I told him that I was going to leave and that we could talk again whenever he was ready to talk without saying horrible things to me, but that I was going to be giving our landlord notice by Monday. I went into my room and got my bag. I locked my door behind me and headed to the door. When I was almost to the front door, he appeared almost right behind me and said my name. I turned around very quickly, and as I did, he punched me right in the face. He didn't knock me out or anything, but I collapsed on the floor. Without saying anything else, he stepped over me and went out the door, leaving me there. I iced my eye for a while, which is now pretty swollen and purple, before I grabbed my bag and left. I called my mom and talked on the phone with her while I walked to my car so that if he approached me, she would hear what happened. She insisted that I was exaggerating about what he had done, so I sent her a picture of my face. She started crying and apologized for being dismissive. I told her that it was okay, but I didn't want to be forced to spend time with him in any family situations ever again. I haven't seen him since then. I've been staying with my new roommate. I've gotten a few texts from him but haven't responded yet. Here's what they say. Text 1, where did you go? I came home and now you're gone? We have to finish talking about this. Text 2, are you fucking kidding me? Tell me where you are or that you're alive. I'm scared that I haven't heard from you. You know how worried I am when you fall off the face of the earth like this. Text 3, you're being such a child right now. Text 4, I don't know what you said to Mom, but you've really upset her. I hope you're happy. Text 5, I'll be home all day Monday if you want to come over and meet with the landlord to give notice. That's fine. Text 6, where am I going to live? His girlfriend even texted me once to tell me how worried he is about me. I'm a little nervous about tomorrow. As I said, I haven't texted him back about joining him tomorrow. I told my new roommate that I need her to come with me. She suggested that I not wear any makeup so he can see the reality of what he did to my face. I don't know. What do you all think? TLDR, I confronted my brother about not wanting to live with him anymore and he punched me in the face. Date 2. Last night my roommate and I went to the police station and filed a police report. I recounted to them all of the weird things that had happened with my brother in the past year that we've lived together. I told them that his girlfriend was a witness to the argument and showed them the text conversation with my mother. They also took pictures of my face in its current state, since my face is obviously more evidently bruised than in the picture I sent my mom. I couldn't think of a whole lot of questions to ask at the time. I was very nervous and a little overwhelmed, and they didn't provide me with a whole lot of information. They gave me a copy of the report and told me that a detective was being assigned to my case and would call me sometime today. I don't know if they're going to be making an arrest or not. I think that they automatically have to in my state when this kind of report is filed, but I'm not sure. I feel really stupid for not thinking to ask such a basic question, but I also feel like it's kind of weird that they didn't offer that information. They did tell me that they would be happy to escort me to the apartment to collect my belongings if I felt that was necessary. His girlfriend called me a few times while I was at the police station, but I was obviously busy and couldn't take her calls. I texted her when I was done and asked if it was too late for me to call. She was still up, so I called and told her about what had happened once she left. She immediately started apologizing. I assured her that what happened wasn't her fault. I asked if he had ever done anything like that to her. She said no. I hope she was being honest. I didn't mention to her that I had gone to the police. I just said that I wanted to let her know for her own safety. She thanked me and apologized some more. She didn't say what her next steps were going to be, but I told her that I would be checking in to make sure she was doing okay, which she said she would appreciate. This morning I called our dad. I haven't talked to my dad since Father's Day. He's remarried and has a few younger children with his new wife. He's definitely one of those remarried dads who ignores his old family in favor of his new one. I wasn't anticipating much sympathy from him, but he really surprised me. He told me that based on some of my brother's behavior from his childhood, violent tendencies towards other kids at school around the time of the divorce, which I had never heard about from anyone until that moment, the whole thing didn't especially shock him. Dad's fairly well off financially and offered to get me a lawyer if I thought I needed one. He highly advised I at least meet with a lawyer to get a professional legal opinion on where to go from here. I took his offer and am meeting with a lawyer in my city tomorrow when I get off of work. My brother cannot afford a lawyer on his own, and my mother cannot afford to help him financially. Having a lawyer is definitely an advantage to me. Thank you all for giving me the kick in the ass I needed to go to the police. I still haven't contacted my brother and think I'll refrain from doing so until after the meeting with the lawyer tomorrow. My mom has sent me a few text messages asking why I haven't been in touch with my brother. I haven't responded to those either.
Me. Moving to new city, bought house with fiancé, 26F. She's decided she's not coming. My fiancé and I have what I thought was a really good, happy, and stress-free relationship. We only got engaged 2 months ago, so we've barely started wedding planning, but we've been together for about 3 years total. I got a new job which tripled my salary and is in line with my career goals. She always wanted to live on the East Coast. She talked about that a lot before this opportunity even came up. So when I asked her if she would be interested in moving, she was really excited. With the promotion, we'll be able for her to start doing her hobby as full-time work if that's what she wants. So she was thrilled about the opportunity. We picked the house out and bought it together, and she was so excited to move in. The original plan was we would both fly out east on the 29th, which would give us a few days to paint the house and get some things ready for when the movers arrived on the 7th. She changed her mind last minute and said she would stay home to make sure everything went well with the movers. I flew back on the 4th, and we were going to drive back east after the movers left on the 5th, because they wouldn't take our ATV or boat, so we had to haul them ourselves. She decided against this again because she thought it would be too long to sit in a car, and she said she would fly out Sunday, yesterday. We booked a ticket and she was supposed to get in around midnight. Yesterday, when I was about to leave to go to the airport, she texts me, "I'm not coming. I'm so sorry." I called her and she said she doesn't want to move anymore and can't explain why. By that I mean she can't figure out what it is that's making her not want to move. Not that she is choosing not to tell me. Then she says she doesn't want to talk and hangs up. I'm not really sure what happened. There wasn't a single sign that she wouldn't be coming. All of her stuff is here, including her laptop, so if this was planned in advance, I would be really surprised. I think maybe she's scared, but she tells me she isn't and she just wants some space. I know Reddit can't tell me what went wrong, but I'm not sure how to approach this. I just started a new job today, so I can't exactly take vacation to fly back home and try to convince my fiancé to move back with me. Should I even try to convince her at all? She's capable of making her own decisions, and I don't want to treat her like she isn't. Or does it sound like I did anything wrong in the weeks leading up to this? I thought I was so careful about making sure she wanted to move, and it seemed like she did. She had the whole house layout and colors planned out on her Pinterest, and she genuinely seemed so excited. Any advice is appreciated. Let me know if you think I might have left something out of the post that could help. TLDR, my fiancé and I were supposed to move for my new job, and for weeks she told me was coming, but told me at 11th hour, literally, that she wouldn't be moving. Not sure what to do. We also bought the house together, so that further complicates things if we end up breaking up. Update. Thanks for all the advice. I have a happy update for you. She showed up at my new job yesterday to surprise me, and she's going to be staying out here. The reason she kept putting off moving was that she found out she is pregnant. It wasn't planned, and was scared to go through pregnancy and have the baby without her mom close by to help. She finally told her mom on Monday, and her mom reassured her and bought her a plane ticket and sent her on her way. As exciting as that news is, she's known for about 2 months now and only told me yesterday. So clearly we have a lot to work on. We think there was just way too much going on at once, with the move, my new job, her quitting hers, our engagement, etc., and now the pregnancy. It was just too stressful for her. I'd appreciate any advice on how to make this easier for her. She finally showed up. She didn't come because she was pregnant and was scared to not have her mom around.
AITAH for telling my friend her kid is a demon? 27F, I am currently having complications with a friend that we will call Karen, 28F, for this situation. So some context on the situation is I have a lot of kids, and I mean a lot, 3 weeks from due date currently. I'm also typically our friend group's trusted babysitter when anybody has something come up with their daycare. So I'm pretty used to an array of different personalities when it comes to kids in my everyday life. Myself and this friend have 2 very different parenting styles. I'm more communicative and personally don't believe in corporal punishment, as redirection/explanations make more sense to me. She is more of the southern style of raise her voice. If you don't hear her the first time, you're gonna feel her hand on the second. That being said, I have finally came to the conclusion of I just can't watch her oldest kid anymore. I don't think I've ever met a more angry child before in my life, and I'm by no means blaming the child for his temperament, but it's just not something that I can personally handle anymore. He doesn't follow any sort of directions, even simple ones, without lashing out violently. He goes out of his way to physically hurt anything without any warning, and I mean anything. The cat, any child, big kid, adult, the freaking houseplants. The scary part is he always laughs and then follows up with name-calling, swearing, or a lovely shrieking sound that would put any coyote to shame. I know this is really messed up to say, but it's like a rerun of the orphan movie IRL when dealing with this kid. Yesterday he walked up to me asking for a snack, and before I could even lift my head from washing dishes he slapped me as hard as he could. It took everything in me to keep from crying because that would obviously freak out my littlest babies in the house. I put him in my spare room, time out, away from the other kids so I could not only take a breath, but reduce the amount of damage that he was currently doing in that moment. Mind you, the situation is completely foreign to me because I can't even count how many kids I've watched over the years, and I've never found myself afraid of a kid. After the incident, I called Karen and told her she needed to immediately come get her son and make other arrangements for him, but I could handle her youngest still to help her save money. She went on to say he's really not that bad, and she doesn't think it's fair that I've never said I wouldn't watch anyone else's kids. After months of having patience, I finally snapped and said, well, none of our other friends have kids that act like a literal demon. I asked her if he really wasn't that bad, then he had slapped me in the face, and why was he currently tearing apart my spare bedroom? If he was so easy to handle, then why do I have to constantly be in fear that he's gonna hurt not just me but another child in my care? She said she couldn't leave work and I needed to learn how to better manage the kids in my care. I was honestly so shocked and frustrated that I got on Facebook and messaged the father of her kids to come get them, even though I know it wasn't his day. I tried to call her again to let her know he was coming to get them, but she wouldn't answer her phone for myself or him. At 8 p.m. that night, 4 hours after she was supposed to be off, she showed up at my house looking for her kids. I told her they were with their father and her son's behavior has been reported to Dad. Now she's saying I potentially ruined her court case for primary custody because Dad had to pick up the kids and realized she was MIA with no idea that he even had the kids for hours. I told her it wasn't my fault and she had 2 breaks she could have called either of us back on, but chose not to. So Reddit, Aita? Update. So do I have a wild ride for you guys? A ton has happened in the last week and some change, so I'm going to TLDR most of it. Dad got emergency custody the following morning after spending the night getting an emergency mental health evaluation at our local hospital. They kept the kid for 3 days and we took that time to help Dad get his house ready for primary parenting. The lawyer went my Karen's place on Monday for the unexpected home visit, and to put it bluntly, there was a lot more going on than any of us realized. The kids' belongings were placed in a pile beside the couch where the kids have apparently been sleeping for the last month. One of the 5 bedrooms in her house is completely unlivable, and the 3 rooms outside of her own are being subleased to strangers. Yes, you're reading that right, she took away her children's rooms and put strangers in there. They also documented smells of burning plastic and urine throughout the household, and there is no pets in the home. She was directed to submit a drug test, and as of now she still has not done that. I am absolutely mortified of the conditions those babies have been living in for months without any of us in the friend group realizing. It also makes sense because she stopped hosting get-togethers shortly after her separation, and we all just assumed she was taking time for herself. Now the icing on the cake, a lot of you warned me that she would likely try to lash out toward me, and you were right because she absolutely did. She tried to call social services claiming that I had an illegal daycare running in my home. Well, of course a social worker did show up, but thankfully the situation was clarified within the same day. I explained that 5 of the kids in my house were my own biological kids and the 2 others I was watching for my cousin without personal pay. Gave them receipts and my last couple bank statements as proof, and should be getting a letter within the next week closing the case as unfounded. They have a hearing Friday to establish custody, and the lawyer has already said it will go to Dad. Karen will get supervised visitation if she petitions for it. If anything changes or something else crazy happens, I'll definitely be updating again, but thank you guys.
AITA for telling my mom I can't make my baby suffer the way she and Dad made my brother suffer. My husband and I, both late 20s, are going through our worst nightmare right now. After trying to conceive for 2 years and becoming pregnant with our very wanted baby, we have learned that our baby has a fatal fetal abnormality and have decided to end the pregnancy. This was not where we expected to be, and it has been gutting. For me, a little more because I have some experience with this. When I was a child, my parents had another child, my brother. They learned he also had a fatal fetal abnormality, and they refused to accept what the doctor said about the condition, and they chose to carry to term and fight for him to survive regardless of what it put him through. He eventually died, but by that time our family was traumatized watching him suffer like he did, and my parents regretted their decision to make him suffer like that. Especially my dad, who had been against it for longer than my mom had. I never blamed them though. I know originally they were given hope that children with my brother's condition didn't suffer badly even if they did survive for a year or 2 after birth. But my brother's condition was far worse than was typical, and they just wanted to believe he'd be okay. But he wasn't. I still remember how much he suffered, and I have carried that with me ever since. So knowing I have a baby with a fatal fetal condition, also, knowing that the one my baby has is actually worse than what my brother had, and it's so incredibly rare to survive, and that the few babies who have it and make it past birth suffer so much, knowing all that I cannot bring myself to carry to term. Everyone knew we were pregnant, so we have been breaking the news to our inner circle. My dad has been the biggest support and offered us both 100% support. My ILs basically want us to get 100 second opinions until our baby is here anyway. They don't feel like we should just accept it. That we could be aborting a perfectly healthy baby, and just because 3 different doctors agree with the diagnosis and prognosis, it doesn't mean we should believe it. Then there's my mom. Even after everything she is pushing me to carry to term. She has tried to get me to cancel the appointment several times a day. I had to stop answering her calls. The day is only 2 days away now, and she is not supporting me. Instead, she's taking a very strong anti-abortion stance that was unexpected after everything. I have tried to explain to her in the nicest way I can manage that we feel it's for the best, and this feels the kinder approach for the baby we love desperately and wanted more than we could express. But she's pushing back and saying how we should let nature take its course and have a chance to meet our first baby. She snapped at me yesterday and told me I'm giving up too easily and how could I live with myself if I follow through and kill my baby. It made me angry and I told her I can't make my baby suffer the way she and Dad made my brother suffer. I told her watching him go through that made me swear I would never. That I would be selfless and instead of selfish because I'm not the one who has to live with that kind of pain and suffering. My mom looked like I slapped her and she told me throwing that back in her face was low and my situation did not excuse it. I never wanted to throw it in her face, but the truth is that's how things happened and it shaped how I feel about this. More than anything, I don't want my baby to die. I want my baby to grow up and live a happy life. But my baby will die. My baby will die very young and will suffer if they survive the birth. I have done my research. I have talked to parents who went through this with the same condition. I have spoken to the professionals. I know what will happen. But I know what I said to my mom hurt her so much. And I want to know if I'm TA for it.
My 27F ex, 26M, dumped me in January after 9 years together because he didn't think I was wife material. Now he reached out wanting to talk because he needs to get something off his chest. I don't know why he doing this or if I should met him. I was with my ex, who I will call Nate, because if I'm being honest, minus betraying a friend, I was a Cassie. I don't want to go too much into the details, but for the last 9 years I lost myself to Nate. He was my world, everything I did was for him. I helped him though depression, helped keep his grades up, even worked 2 jobs so he could focus on collage when his parents disowned him for nearly 3 years because they didn't agree with the major or collage he chose. Bear in mind I was also a collage student. When his parents started talking to him again and started to financial support him, we moved into a new apartment. Nate said he wanted me to quit my job. I didn't, because it was his turn to take care of me. For 16 months everything was great. He spoiled me. Then I noticed he was more interested in his new friends. At times he ignored me completely. Back in December he did a 180 and he bombed me the whole month. He really went out of his way to make Christmas magical for me. I honestly believed he was going to propose on January the 2nd. He made me my favorite dinner and made this speech about me being his first love, how I've been there since high school. I kept thinking any minute now he's gonna ask me to marry him. But no, he dumped me. As his speech went on, my world fell apart, and as much he tried to sugarcoat it, he basically said, "You were a good girlfriend, but that's what you always be to me, a girlfriend. I don't see you as my wife or the mother of my children, blah blah. You served your purpose, now I don't need you anymore, blah blah. I need someone on my level, blah blah. You're a gold digger, blah. I'll give you 30 days to move out." I couldn't speak and he stared at me looking for a response. I think this lasted 20 minutes before he said he'd sleep in the guest room, then left. Strangely, I didn't cry or get angry. I just ordered cardboard boxes online, then went to bed. The next day I waited for him to leave the apartment before I left my room. Then I called my boss, asked, begged really, if I could transfer anywhere. She told me there wasn't anything, but if something came up in my department she'd consider me. I then reached out to everyone I knew that wasn't also Nate's friend for a place to stay. My cousin invited me to stay in her spare room for as long as I needed and I could move in straight away, so that was amazing. In the 4 days it took me to pack my stuff and move out, I didn't see or speak to Nate. I doubt he even noticed. I didn't trust myself at the time to ignore a "you up" text, so I blocked him and everyone close to him, even changed me number/email to make sure he couldn't reach me. The first night at my cousin's was the night everything hit me. I think I cried every night the first month. I honestly felt like shit. I thought about what Nate said over and over again. It made me feel so low, like I was nothing. He only stayed with me because I was just there, but thankfully my cousins sent for my mom, other cousins, and real friends to give me an intervention which I badly needed. I believe that first month I wouldn't have made it without my cousin. I'm still healing and waiting on that job transfer because I feel like if I'm not in the same city as Nate and I have a place of my own, the fresh start would do me the world of good. I thought by now I'd be a distant memory for Nate, but shockingly he sent flowers to my job today for my birthday, which was on Sunday. Apparently he went to my parents' house looking for me too, and my mom admitted he's been before dropping off stuff and tried to ask questions about me, but they told him to fuck off. The flowers came with a card saying, "Dear Cassie, happy belated birthday. I've been thinking about you for non-stop for the last few months, especially with how everything ended. I need to get something off my chest that I feel will haunt me for the rest of my life if I don't tell you this to your face, but I've no way of contacting you. If it's possible, can we meet up in the near future, Nate?" What could he want? What's haunting him he needs to say to my face? Everyone in my life is telling me ignore him, but they hate him. I'm torn, but I can't lie. My curiosity is telling me meet him to see what he wants. Has anyone been in my shoes or in Nate's? Update. So we ended up meeting, and no, I didn't go to him. I had told the receptionist at my work if he came looking for just say I'm out for the day after he showed up once. I didn't want the drama of him around my job. So Nate just kept going to my usual places like the grocery store I go every Saturday evening or the park I ran at Sunday mornings, his words, till he would eventually run into me. And he did yesterday. He was waiting at the coffee shop I go to after my morning run. When I saw him I tried to turn around and leave, but he kept calling me, so I thought to myself if everything went pear-shaped a coffee shop would be safer than my walk home. So I just sat down and asked him what he wanted. He gave an apology that wasn't an apology, you know, the type with, "I'm sorry but," and "pity me." He blamed his mental health, his job, his parents, his friends, everyone but himself. I took someone's advice on here and said, "Cut the crap, I already know everything." He genuinely looked shocked and stared at me for a second. I guess he thought his coworker already told me everything so he couldn't lie. Here's what really happened. He fell for a girl in his office. When he told me her name I knew her immediately. I've met her a few times. He told for the last 2 years he idolized her. To be fair, she's beautiful with an amazing personality. And he hated me because I was the one stopping them from being together because his coworker was too classy to be a side piece. When he broke up with me he confessed to her that he was madly in love with her and he ended a 9-year relationship to be with her. Well, here's where it gets funny. She doesn't even like him, lol. She called him a piece of trash and told him if he ever spoke to her outside work she'd report him to HR. So I asked him, what has any of this got to do with me? Like we are over. I clearly cut ties. There's no reason for us to speak. He wants to try again, promised we'd get married before the year ends, that we belong together. I told him no, I'm nobody's second choice. He threw me away after 9 years and said some pretty cruel things to me, and now he thinks if he snaps his fingers I'll come running back. He tried to beg in fake tears, bringing the good times in our relationship. I told him please leave me alone as he wasted too much of my time already. I texted my cousin to meet me at the coffee shop. He kept saying nonsense, even suggested if I went to couples counseling for a few months he'd leave me alone. The 20 minutes it took for my cousin to arrive felt like 20 years. In the end I just stopped listening and stood at the counter making small talk with baristas till my cousin arrived. She told him to fuck off and if he tried to follow us she'd call her brothers. He stayed in the coffee shop as far as I know and we just went home, that's it. It's only been a day but I feel like it's over and I'm free of him.